I will welcome Emily Klein from Fishline to talk to us a little bit about a wonderful program that she administers called HomeShare. And Emily, you're going to need to unmute yourself. Uh, and there you go.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here. I am going to see if I can activate my PowerPoint. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me to present today. I am here to talk about, as Reed mentioned, Fishline's HomeShare program. And I'll start with just a brief intro. What is the HomeShare program? Quite simply, we are a housemate matching service, and we connect people who have space to rent in their homes with people who are in search of housing and who are also open to shared living. And we are open to all of Kitsap County. Most of Fishline's programs are for folks who live within our service area, which is North Kitsap, but the HomeShare program actually is open to people from Port Orchard to Hansville. Who is HomeShare for? HomeShare, quite simply, is for all types of people. It is for working professionals, many of whom, despite working full-time, cannot afford the rent around here, which, as some of you may be aware, has gone up by about 60% in just the last 4 to 5 years. It is for people who are on a fixed income, people who are retired, who are on Social Security, or who receive disability income. HomeShare is for elders, it's for students, it's even for families. HomeShare is for social butterflies, but it's also for introverts and people who need lots of personal space. Quite simply, HomeShare is for anyone who is interested in shared living. While there is no one demographic profile of the type of person who would be served well by HomeShare, there are a few qualities that make it a particularly good fit. Foremost is flexibility, because as you are all aware, dealing with other people, especially when you live with them, does require some give and take. So if you have the ability to be somewhat flexible, to put up with other people's quirks and expect them to be willing to put up with yours, if you're willing to not sweat the small stuff and kind of go with the flow, this program is a really good fit. Another quality is a certain level of communication skills, being able to talk things through. If something is bothering you, being able to bring it up in a straightforward and respectful way goes a long way towards facilitating harmonious relationships of any kind, but especially when you're living with someone. Being able to clearly express your own needs and listen when someone else expresses theirs. And finally, I think one of the most important qualities, again, in any relationship, but especially when you're sharing space, is humor. Being able to laugh together is one of the greatest ways to smooth over the rough patches, to enjoy the good times and make it through the hard times together. If you can laugh together, you're already well on your way to a very successful shared living relationship. Some of you may be wondering, that sounds fine, but why would I want to live with someone? Many of us do really like our space. We like our independence. We like our privacy. We like being able to do what we want when we want to do it. However, there are so many benefits to sharing a home with someone. One of those major benefits is affordability. As I mentioned, there are many folks in the rental market right now who are effectively shut out of renting because the rent is so darn high. Not only renters struggle with affordability, however, there are many people who may own their homes, but property taxes are tremendous. Utilities add up. Home maintenance services can quickly become unaffordable. So sharing a home means also sharing costs. So instead of just barely getting by, there may be more scope for building savings, for having just a little more leeway to enjoy life and have some extra income. Another major reason why people enjoy shared living is because of the mutual help it represents. Sometimes folks need some extra help at home. If you have a huge yard, if you have a house that needs cleaning, which we all do, if you have pets who could use some extra care, if you could use help with errands, many of these things can be done by a home sharer, especially if there's something that you really don't like to do. If you love getting out in the garden and getting your hands in the dirt, but you're not so big on house chores, perhaps you could find a housemate who loves to vacuum and do dishes. And it sounds kind of incredible, but they are out there. Another reason why someone might turn to shared living is for the safety, the security, and the peace of mind that you get from having another person in the home. Especially for people who would otherwise live alone, having someone else there to look out for you, to ask how you're doing at the end of the day, who will notice if you're feeling down, if you're sick, who can bring you a cup of tea, is really reassuring and comforting. There's also that security of having someone else in the house during the night. The peace of mind that if you leave your home for a vacation or a trip, knowing that there's going to be someone else there keeping an eye out is a huge benefit. And finally, companionship and community are huge. Even for those of us who are introverts and really need a lot of alone time and personal space, we still need other people. And a lot of folks who come to shared living for other reasons, because they need to share costs, because they're overwhelmed with the amount of work they have to do around the house and need a helping hand, find that even though they decided to share for practical reasons, they come to really cherish the companionship and the sense of community that living with someone else can bring. So I think, obviously I'm biased because I'm part of the program, but I think that the HomeShare program is a wonderful way to find a housemate. You can, of course, go on Craigslist or, ask your network of friends and family for help with finding a housemate. But the HomeShare program really does offer a lot of benefits. The first of which is that we screen all of our participants thoroughly. When they come to us, one of the first things we do is ask for a background check and references. So we call people who know our applicants well to get a better sense of who they are and how they might be in a shared living situation. We offer a personalized matching process based on compatibility. So when people come to the HomeShare program and they're interested, they fill out an application, and the application covers things like where they want to live, how much they are asking for or can afford to spend on rent, whether or not they have pets, whether or not they are close to transit or need to be close to transit, all the practical nuts and bolts. We also ask about things like sleep habits. Are you an early bird or a night owl? What kind of music do you like? How do you feel about having guests in the home? Things like that help us get to know our participants on a deeper level so that when it's time to recommend a potential match, we can connect people who we think are going to be compatible. And it is always up to the participants to decide whether they want to move forward. We never, assign you someone or say, okay, here's Susie, we think you'll be a good fit. You're living together now. We always let you decide who you feel comfortable with and whether or not you want to proceed. The arrangements are flexible and easily customized. There can be just a straight exchange of rent. So if someone is in need of financial support and someone can pay a certain amount of rent, it's a straightforward transaction. Other people may need help more than they need extra money, so they can offer reduced rent in exchange for the provision of some services. So they can agree on, say, maybe 5 hours of yard work per week for a certain reduction in rental amount. That is all up to the individual participants to decide what they need and what they can offer. We also have resources to help set our matches up for success. One of those is the HomeShare agreement, which is similar to a lease, but it goes into much more detail, and it can be customized by the participants to cover everything from the rental amount and policies about pets and deposits and what spaces are going to be shared, down to things like guests in the home, quiet hours, expectations around even when and how the dishes are going to be done. It can be as detailed or as basic as the participants would like it to be. And right now, during this time of shelter in place, when we're all taking extra precautions, we really encourage people to have the conversation around safety practices, social distancing. What does each person do to keep themselves safe when they're outside of the home? And can you arrive at an agreement and really make sure that you're on the same page about those safety practices? I would like to kind of conclude with a story about the folks that you see in this image here. This is Gail and David. Gail came to us because she struggles with some mobility challenges, and she was having a hard time keeping up with all of the chores in her home. As you can see, she has a dog, and sometimes it was really challenging to take the dog for a walk. Things like vacuuming, deep cleaning, even dishes were becoming really challenging because of some of her health concerns. She was also experiencing some financial difficulties because the senior community that she lives in was raising the rent every year. And she did have a pension, but those costs were quickly adding up. So Gail came to us seeking some financial help and some help around the house. Around a while after Gail came to us, David, who you also see in this picture, came to us because he had recently relocated to be closer to his family. He had retired and wanted to be close to his grown children. He also wanted to live within his means as a retired person on a fixed income, and he wanted to be of service. He is someone who gets bored if he's just sitting around. He is a people person who loves to help. We thought that these two might be a really good fit, so we introduced them. They started out by talking on the phone, then they proceeded to an in-person meeting. David met Gail's family, they hit it off, and they decided they wanted to move forward. This was before shelter in place, and the timing was really fortuitous because as someone who has some medical concerns, after shelter in place happened, Gail was not able to leave her house. She relies on public transit, and she did not want to be doing that. David was able to do all of her errands for her, take her to medical appointments, and also had a lot of time on his hands to do some home renovations, which he was actually excited to do. He's been doing deck repairs inside the house. He's in the process of painting the house. So it has really been a win-win for both of them. Gail's gotten a little boost in her income and someone to help her. David has an affordable place that gives him access to the beauty of the Olympic Peninsula. And he also has projects that keep him busy and engaged. And they have both found a new friend. Lots of communities around the nation and around the world have successful long-running HomeShare programs. HomeShare Vermont has been operating for about 40 years. And right here in Washington, Shared Housing Services in Tacoma has been operating for a little less than 30 years. They have their adult home sharing program, which is very similar to ours, in which they connect people who can share housing. They also have specific programs for veterans who can be connected to share with other veterans, and a program for current UW students, alumni, and staff to connect with one another to share housing. So if you are interested in learning more or even applying to the HomeShare program, we can be reached on the phone We can be reached by email, and we also have a website that has frequently asked questions, some more information and resources, and also has our contact information. We also have our virtual meet and greet coming up. I'm really excited about this. For shelter in place, I was planning to have an in-person meet and greet at our Fishline building where people could mix and mingle and meet other community members interested in shared living, but we are taking it online, and I'm actually really excited about that because that means that people from all over the county will be able to attend with greater ease. This is going to be happening on Wednesday the 19th at 5 p.m. and I'll be doing a presentation similar to this. There will also be a lot of time for questions, and people can meet other community members who are interested in shared living. So I'm gonna get out of my PowerPoint here. Let's see, stop sharing. For a second.
That's great.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time. It's an honor to be here and get to share about this program. I'm very passionate about HomeShare and really excited to be able to introduce it to you. So I'm happy to answer questions now if there is time.
There's certainly time. We have a question from the chat, which is up in the upper right-hand corner, if anyone wants to participate that way. Lynn is asking about whether there's an income requirement.
That's a great question. We do not have an income requirement. We do ask for proof of income from our seekers, which is what we call people who are looking for housing through this program. We call seekers. People who are offering housing, we call providers. So there is no income qualification, though we do ask for proof of income from our seekers just to show that they do have some income. Generally, this program works better for people who have some income. Folks who are receiving no income, generally this program is not a good fit because you still need to meet expenses. Even if somebody is offering a work trade for rent, you still need to be able to pay for a share of utilities, you need to pay for transportation and food. And most of our providers are charging at least some rent.
You have been for a couple years, I think, as the coordinator, if my memory serves, maybe a year and a half.
Yes, about a year and a half I've been in this.
And so I'm curious, before you started, I think that Housing Resources Bainbridge was trying a HomeShare on the island, and Fishline had a HomeShare enterprise in other parts of the county. It's consolidated now. Has that worked well in trying to get the inventory a little more flexible for folks?
It really has. We do have some matches throughout the county, not just in North Kitsap, and we have participants on Bainbridge. We have people offering housing and seeking housing who are from Bainbridge. Right now, as I'm sure you can imagine, things have slowed down a little bit. I think, you know, in most areas of life, things have kind of slowed down, but we are picking back up and we are really focusing on welcoming more people into the program because the more participants we have, the more potential matches there are.
And if anybody has a question, you can just open your microphone and speak.
Richard Herzog here. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you finally. First of all, some feedback. Your presentation was excellent. I've done quite a bit of research on HomeShare because I'm about to set it up for my ex-wife. So I watched the presentation from Vermont and also from the organization on your website that you send people to for additional information. So you did a spectacular job. Thank you. And the program seems to be good, excellent, as a matter of fact. I also have some experience about HomeShare from past years. So I encourage everybody to get into this because it is very, very beneficial for both of the interested parties and for the overall community. as well, a very helpful thing for elderly people and senior citizens. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that wonderful feedback. And I really hope that you'll join us at the meet and greet. I think that a lot of people who are new to the concept of shared housing can really benefit from hearing from people with firsthand experience, because it can be a little intimidating if you don't have experience, and hearing from folks who know about it firsthand can be really helpful. So
I intend, I've already put it down on my calendar. So yes, I will be there.
wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wonder, Emily, if you could talk a little bit about the aspect of the program whereby you make sure that after the arrangement is set up, you keep in touch with the participants to make sure that it's going well.
Sure. So we do check in at intervals. Usually we'll follow up a couple of weeks after the match has been made. And then after that, we follow up after a month and then kind of check in quarterly. So we do try to reach out to folks and just give them a little check in and say, hey, how's it going? We're interested to hear what it's like for people. We also are always available if folks want to call us to check in and give us updates. We welcome that. We also are working on a really exciting collaboration with the Dispute Resolution Center. For the most part, in my experience, when people have disagreements or differences of opinion, which do come up because these are human beings, people are usually able to talk it out amongst themselves and sit down, have a conversation, and come to an acceptable resolution just on their own. In situations where it's more complicated, we can connect folks with the Dispute Resolution Center, which offers a neutral third party to bring people together in conversation to help them work out their differences in a supportive atmosphere. So we really do try to stay connected. We don't, as the HomeShare program, offer any kind of counseling or mediation services, but we're always happy to hear how our participants are doing in their matches, and we are also happy to offer that referral if they need a little extra support.
One additional thing that comes to mind is I've been a landlord for 36 years, and I looked at both the brief agreement that you provided and the template for the long agreement, and they're both very, very well done. So that's good. And this is the first time I've heard about the dispute resolution. I'm really confident that that's going to be very, very helpful and beneficial to the program too.
Thank you so much. I think that's something that we could all benefit from in our relationships sometimes, is having a little extra support from someone else. So I'm excited about that too.
Yes.
I'm curious if you can talk at all about some of the commonalities of the people who are offering homes. What do they generally have? A bathroom and bedroom that are separate? What kinds of facilities, homes are being shared?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our basic requirement for people who would like to offer space in their home is they need to have at least a private bedroom and access to shared kitchen and bathroom facilities. Sometimes people offer a separate bathroom. I would say it's typical to have a private bedroom and then shared bath and kitchen facilities, but it really is all over the map. Some people have very small, modest homes to share. Some people share apartments. Renters can, in fact, share their homes and be home providers with the permission of their landlords. If there's an option to sublet on the lease, that can happen. So some people do share very small spaces. Other people have larger homes with multiple spare rooms and private bathrooms. Very occasionally, we have folks who offer an ADU or accessory dwelling unit that's a a studio above their garage or a little cottage on the property. So there's a wide variety of different options.
Yes, I can imagine if seniors living alone, it would be very helpful to have, even if they're living in a larger home, be able to have the companionship and the support that you talked about. Laura had a question on the chat about how many of these arrangements have you been able to put together, at least in your time there?
Yeah, great question. So last year, we made 11 matches, and that was up from 5 the previous year. So it's not a huge number, but it's growing. One of those matches, the folks connected and they did a trial match and decided after that time that they didn't want to move forward. And one of the matches, they were all set to move in, but one of the people experienced a family emergency and had to change plans. So of those 11 matches, 9 of them stuck. And this year so far, because of COVID and shelter in place, we have made 3 matches. So we made a couple right at the beginning of the year, and we actually have made 1 match during shelter in place. Both parties were confident and felt secure that they wanted to proceed despite social distancing guidelines. So it's been a little bit of a slow start to the year because everything was so up in the air, a lot of uncertainty in everybody's lives, but we are working on getting the momentum going again.
That sounds wonderful. That's a situation where we're going to get more adept at dealing with the challenges of living in the time of pandemic, and we're all learning how to make adjustments and move forward, if cautiously, with our lives.
Right.
Well, both of those questions were really, really good ones, and I'm glad they were asked because I think they should be part of the presentation. The other question that I would ask is, here in Kitsap County, I know on your website you say that a suggested average rent is about $600. Is that for unfurnished or furnished would be one of a series of questions I'm about to ask you. And the second one is, just in general, what is the range of rent that you are finding on the basis of your 2 years of experience?
That's a fantastic question. So rooms can be either furnished or unfurnished. That's at the discretion of the folks who are offering space and needing space. Some people bring with them furniture that they would really like to have, and many of our home providers are flexible in offering either a furnished room or letting people bring their own stuff. So that's a conversation that takes place between the folks who are looking to share. The $600 rate is actually considered fair market rate by HUD. A lot of folks on the private market are charging more than that, especially on Bainbridge Island and some areas of North Kitsap. So we want to see people ideally below market rate because many of our participants are folks who are on a fixed income. And if you're getting $770 per month in Social Security and your rent is $600, that doesn't really add up. So we would love to see more opportunities in the $200 to $300 range, with the understanding that folks who are opening their homes are also getting a lot of benefit above and beyond just the rent. The range that I have seen in my tenure is anywhere from a full trade for room and board for some services to about, I would say the upper range is $900 if the space being offered is fully independent and enclosed. So a separate studio or ADU. We don't want to see folks going much above $900, even though that is well below market rate for an accessory dwelling unit in this county. That's still a lot for a lot of folks. I remember, gosh, it was about a little more than 10 years ago, I had an apartment in Winslow and it was a 2-bedroom. It was beautiful. It was $800 a month. And now that very same unit rents for, I believe, $1,900. So it's really, even though these rates are considered, you know, market rate, for a lot of people, even people who are lucky enough to be employed full time, it just doesn't add up. So we would love to see the options really expanded, kind of at the lower end of the range.
I want to thank you very much, Emily, for spending the time with us and really going over this program, which is an excellent program. And I think, like you said, offers some real advantages to people over doing the work on their own with Craigslist or some other next door job posting.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank you for letting me practice my PowerPoint slides. That was great to know that it actually works. And